Hey everybody, welcome to Finding Ithaca. We're about to read a Greek myth together called Icarus and Daedalus. And this story reminds us why young people have a responsibility to obey their parents. For the same good reason that parents have a responsibility to guide their children. There are many things that adults know that children just don't. So remember Buddy in the Train, that story we read together? Rules are barriers of love meant to keep us safe. You do well to remember that as we read the story together.
Daedalus was the most skillful builder and inventor of his day in ancient Greece. He built magnificent palaces and gardens and created wonderful works of art throughout the land. His statues were so beautifully crafted that they were taken for living beings, and it was believed that they could see and walk about. People said someone as cunning as Daedalus must have learned the secrets of his craft from the gods themselves. Now across the sea, on the island of Crete, lived a king named Minos. King Minos had a terrible monster that was half bull and half man called the Minoraur, and he needed some place to keep it. When he heard of Daedalus' cleverness, he invited him to come into his country and build a prison to hold the beast. So Daedalus and his young son Icarus sailed to Crete. And there, Daedalus built the famous Labyrinth, a maze of winding passages so tangled and twisted that whoever went in could never find his way out. And it was in the center of this labyrinth they placed the Minotaur. When the labyrinth was finished, Daedalus wanted to sail back to Greece with his son, but Minos had made up his mind to keep them in Crete. He wanted Daedalus to stay and invent more wonderful devices for him, so he locked them both in a high tower beside the sea. The king knew Daedalus was clever enough to escape from the tower, so he ordered every ship to be searched for stowaways before sailing away from Crete. Other men may have given up, but not Daedalus. From his high tower, he watched the seagulls drifting on the ocean breezes. Minos may control the land and sea, he said, but he does not rule the air. We'll go that way. So he summoned all the secrets of his craft, and he set to work, and little by little, he gathered great piles of feathers of all sizes. He fastened them together with thread, and he molded them with wax. At last, he had two great wings like those of the seagull. He tied them to his shoulders, and after one or two clumsy efforts, he found that by waving his arms, he could actually rise into the air. He held himself aloft, wavering this way and that way with the wind, until he taught himself how to glide and soar on the currents as gracefully as any gull. Next, he built a second pair of wings for Icarus. He taught the boy how to move the feathers and rise a few feet in the air, and then let him fly back and forth across the room. Then he taught him how to ride the air currents, climbing in circles and hanging in the winds. They practiced together until Icarus was ready. Finally, the day came when the winds were just right. Father and son strapped on their wings and prepared to fly home. Remember all I've taught you, Daedalus said. Above all, remember, you must not fly too high or too low. For if you fly too low, the ocean sprays will clog your wings and make them too heavy. But if you fly too high, the heat from the sun will melt the wax and your wings will fall apart. Stay close to me and you'll be fine. Up they rose, the boy after his father, and the hateful ground of Crete sank far beneath them. And as they flew, the plowman stopped his work to gaze, and the shepherd leaned on his staff to watch them. And the people came running from their houses to catch a glimpse of the two figures high above the treetops. Surely they must be gods, Apollo perhaps, and Cupid after him. At first, the flight seemed terrible to both Daedalus and Icarus. The wide, endless sky dazed them, and even the quickest glance down made their brains reel. But gradually, they grew used to riding among the clouds, and they lost their fear. Icarus felt the wind fill his wings and lift him higher and higher. He began to sense a freedom he had never known before. He looked down with great excitement at all the islands as they passed and their people, and the broad blue sea spread out beneath him, dotted with the white sails of ships. He soared higher and higher, forgetting his father's warning. He forgot everything in the world but joy. "Come back!" Daedalus called out frantically. "You're flying too high! Remember the sun! Come down! Come down!" But Icarus thought of nothing but his own excitement and glory. He longed to fly as close as he could to the heavens. Nearer and nearer he came to the sun. Slowly his wings began to soften, and one by one the feathers began to fall and scatter into the air. And suddenly, the wax melted all at once. Icarus felt himself falling. He fluttered his arms as fast as he could, but no feathers remained to hold him in the air. He cried out for his father, but it was too late. With a scream, he fell from the lofty heights. From across the sea, crimson sails. Odysseus sees a boy falling from the sky. He leaps toward the splash and swims toward him and grabs on. Hoisting him up to his ship, he returns him home to his beloved Greece and his loving father, Daedalus.